Then you got into one of the best institutions for law.
You realize that in boards exam, it's more of, like, for example, I think the cutoff was around 60% or something. I wanted to talk about the day of examination and the mistakes which I made, which I think that any aspirant, any sincere aspirant should
So,
not do.
children, I think on that day of exam, hello and welcome to Adda 24/7. I'm your host Ashish Garg, and I am honored to make you meet with one of the toppers of CLAT 2024. Mr. Jay Shah is from Mumbai, and he is one person जिसको बोलते हैं ना child prodigy, because he's a doctor by profession. He's a science student with physics, chemistry, biology in class 12. Appeared for CLAT 2024 and got All India rank 150. Let's welcome him on board and like to understand what was the journey like for CLAT and when did he decide to appear for CLAT as a paper. So welcome, Jay. How are you?
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for inviting me. Like, not a prodigy per se, but yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you invited. Actually, I come from science background, as you said, and in 11th and 12th, I had taken science. But towards 11th end, the fag end of 11th standard, I realized that I had an interest in law. And I decided that I need to give an exam. I researched upon it, and then I realized that we have an exam called CLAT, and you have national law universities in which you can get. So I applied for it, and simultaneously, since I'd taken science as well, and I had an inclination towards medicine, so I had given MHCET as well, which is the state entrance exam. And I got into medicine, but I didn't get into a very good law school. I had got into NLU Assam in the first list, and I had thought that maybe by the second or the third list, there would not be much improvement. So I had two, laddus in hands. So one hand it was law, another hand it was medicine. Everyone said, you're getting a government medical college, you should join it. I completed MBBS in 2022, and I had an opportunity. I got lucky. I had a research opportunity to go to Poland and to Mexico for 1 month each. So at that time, since it coincided with, like, I went in the month of December, I couldn't give CLAT that year. And I had to serve a bond of 1 year to the government of Maharashtra, since I did from a government college. So I joined the bond in May this year. Yes, I joined my bond, and I had a period of 1 year to be served. And just scrolling through November, around October, November, I still realized that, the admissions for CLAT were open. The website was still on. So I logged it on, and I didn't inform my parents. I just filled in the form. And on the day of exam also, my parents didn't know that I was going to give that exam. And during there are two phases to it. The first phase is the preparatory phase, and what happened on the day of exam. So there are two separate things. So which one should I share first?
Alright, so first of all, it's a very encouraging and very fascinating story that you have told me about yourself. A person in class 11th who wanted to go for a law as a career, ended up doing medicine and was selected that time also in one of the NLUs.
Yeah.
May not be the best one, but one of the NLUs. And now again has scored AIR 150. That's commendable. I mean, there are students who are scared to clear the paper once, and this gentleman here in front of me has cleared the paper twice, and both the times has got one of the NLUs. It was not that no college was allotted in the first time and no college is allotted in the second time. So I am so glad, first of all, to understand that law was on the cards. I am sure that's why you appeared for CLAT. But I want to know the reaction of the parents first, because when they have a child like you, who is a meritorious student, who has got into a government medical college, because that is also not easy. Everybody wants to get into a government medical college because of various things, because of the reputation, because of the fees and everything. You got there. Then you got into one of the best institutions for law. So I want to know, once the result came, which was, I think, on the 10th of December, if I'm correct. When the result came, I want to know the reaction of your parents first. What was the reaction?
Oh, I'll just share a small anecdote. When I had filled in the fees, in my passbook, it was written CLAT code. So my parents didn't realize at that time that what this 4,000 rupees were for. Okay. I told them that it's a chocolate shop nearby, and I paid for it. We went out to a party, and that was CLAT code.
Okay.
So and they were like, okay, they didn't think about it. And when the results came, personally, I wasn't on cloud 9, because I had given this exam with only one aim in mind, which was to get into NLSI. And seeing the current seat matrix, despite the seats being increased to 300, I somewhere felt that 150 was not, a rank which would guarantee me admission. I was pretty sure of Nalsa or Hyderabad. So I wasn't that happy, but then I told that eventually I need to tell them. So my father was reading the newspaper, my mother was in the kitchen, and I told them that I need to tell you something, that the results are out. Because from the morning itself to the evening, I think the results were around 7:30 or 8.
Correct.
It was a normal time at house, so I told them that the results have come. They said, of which exam? And I said, I gave CLAT again this year. And they didn't think, they thought that dream had died, because I didn't want to, continuously keep them in dual minds as well. So I told them, and they were like, do you really need to do this? They were happy. They were happy with the rank of 150. They didn't expect. They were like, when did you prepare? And I did solve a few mock tests. I'll get to that later. But yeah, they were happy. The mood was jovial. But I said that maybe I won't get Bangalore, but I'll get Hyderabad. Then the volley of questions started. They were like, do you really want to do that? I told them that I have certain values which inspire me. So justice is one of them. Fighting for the underprivileged, or fighting for some values which I believe in. So that's what drove me, and they were pretty convinced.
Okay.
And but my mother was like, you have already given 7 years to med school. You need to do another 5 years for this. So she tried putting some logic, some sense into it. And she said that if your batchmates would be around 7 years or 6 years younger to you, you easily blend with them. Or, it's again a different city. You have already stayed 7 years away from us. And again for 5 years there. So are you ready for that? So I thought about it again. Because, back there was a very different reaction, sir. Because even under 24/7, even some other law prep institutes, they had very different or varying degrees of cutoffs which were given. So before the rank came, I was like, maybe I will get in, because the paper was good. But then I realized that it was good for everyone, basically. So, yeah. So
I would cut you short here, and I would like to, because you mentioned about the paper.
Yeah.
Now, when you appeared for CLAT first time, then you were possibly a school student that time.
Yeah, 18.
Now you're a doctor. Right?
Yeah.
The paper remains the same. So I would like to know, because you cleared and got one of the NLUs that time as well, what was your preparation strategy? What did you and how did you study? Because I think when you appeared for the first time, the pattern was different.
Yeah, we had 200 questions.
Yeah, it was one-liners, 200 questions. Then now the pattern is passage-based. The number of questions are also less. And this year again, the pattern was changed. The paper was of 2 hours. The questions were 120 from 150 they made. So what was that preparation strategy that you took so that our young viewers who are aiming for CLAT and want to appear it for in 2025, what is that preparation strategy that you want to tell to them?
So I'll just tell in short about what I did during my 12th, because that won't have much significance now that the pattern has changed. But it was a tough time juggling between two, coming from science and having PCB and 12th. So you are in that rat race to get into med school or law school, to basically crack that competitive examination. So it was pretty hectic. I had some resource material then. So on weekdays, I would practice it. I'd give mocks. And on the day of exam, what had happened was it was a computer-based test. Currently, it is pen and paper. At that time, it was computer-based. So I think we have regressed a bit. But so at the time, I think every week, or when we had weekly, like I would solve weekly papers, I was that I divided it into subparts. So you have English comprehension, you have legal, you have logical, you have quant, and you have current affairs. So at that time, I could not keep up much in pace with current affairs. Maths was something which came naturally because it isn't that tough. You solve it again and again, and in a short span of time, you can do it in a pretty standard format. Like you'll have Venn diagrams, you'll have profit loss questions, you'll have percentages, ratios. So there's a set piece kind of thing. Current affairs was like an ocean. Like they do say that past 12 months is sufficient, but at the tender age of 18, I wasn't very incisive with reading. I would read everything. I would read Mumbai as well. I would read state, and I would read national and international. So I didn't get that guidance at that time. But they say hindsight is 6/6. So now when I see that when I decided that in November I applied for it, and in December I had the exam. So I had exactly 1 month, around 1 month and 7 days, and 3 days of Diwali, 3 or 4 days of Diwali. So I decided that again I need to break up, and I need to start with my weakest section first. So it was surprisingly against mathematics, because I had not been in touch with maths for a pretty long time.
Correct.
So when I solved my first set of questions, like 15 questions, 3 sets. This year CLAT asked only 2 sets of 6 questions each. But mock tests generally they had 5 questions, passage based, so they were around 3 sets. Everyone was expecting around 15 questions. So I tried solving it, and first time it took me around 45 minutes just for 3 sets. And then gradually it narrowed down to 40, 30. So it was a long and tedious process. But then I ensured that maths is something which I need to do. Because when I gave my first mock, a base level mock, the score I got was around 65 or 70. And I thought that with this score, it is impossible to get into NLSI band. So I thought, let's start with the weakest first, because that's the point I realized. You need to eat that frog.
So in this preparation,
yeah.
So in this preparation that you were doing, and you said that you started sometime in August. So were there any source material that you were referring, or were there any books that you were referring, so that our audience and our children also get to know that he was referring to these books, so we can also refer to these books. So were there any source material or any mock tests that you were referring?
Right. Actually, I started towards back end of October, so I had only 1.5 months, hardly 1 month.
Okay.
So I joined Telegram. First of all, I joined Telegram. I searched for that, and I had a few groups which were there, and they had some model question papers. So that was where I first came my first mock test, and in that I scored around 65. And then I realized I need to consistently improve. And along with that, while filling the form itself, CLAT Consortium had given sample papers. So sample papers as well as past 10 years paper, you had to pay some 1,000 rupees additional, and they would give you those papers. I'm sorry. So I solved 6 or 7 of those papers, like from 2017 to 2022. I solved all of those papers, and that helped me in good stead that what exactly is CLAT, expecting of us. For example, I'll just give you one short example. During English passage, I used to read the passage, then go on to questions. Read the passage, go on to questions. I realized that it is not about my English comprehension or literature skills. It is about getting that answer right. So I would first go through those questions. Like, what is it asked? Which is the main idea that the author supports? What can be concluded in that? Or what does this line state? And then I would go back to the passage. So that is what I did for English section. So that helped me save a huge amount of time. And English was perhaps one of my strongest subjects. So, reading newspapers, I kept reading newspapers, I kept reading editorials. So that helped, I guess, for English that helped. For maths, unless you practice, unless you put pen to paper, it won't happen. So that's the main key takeaway for maths.
So Jay, my next question to you would be, one medical exam that you have taken, cleared it, conquered it, got the seat. Another national exam, CLAT, cleared it, conquered it, got the seat. In this entire process of taking the exam, when you do, I'm sure that this time when you took CLAT, you had a different mindset, because now you are a young adult. Okay, that time you were a teenager when you appeared for your first CLAT, and of course your medical exam. So going back then, I'll take you around 7-8 years back. I want to understand that now when you are in class 12, these days I see a lot of students who are there. They have a lot of aspirations. They have a lot of expectations also surrounded by people, parents, teachers, society per se. Now in that particular process, at times there's a lot of burden on the child. And when there is a lot of burden on the child, if the child doesn't perform, in that preparation phase only, they get demotivated. So I want to understand from you that what kept you motivated throughout the process, and what did you do in those times when possibly there was a kind of self-doubt maybe that appeared, your mocks were not going well, or the marks in the mocks were not happening. So how did you motivated yourself, and was there any key to success that you can give to your now children?
Yeah, so it takes me back to nostalgia, but I haven't thought of it. But now, since you have told, I realize that 12th is a very major turning point, right? So, irrespective of the stream you take, it's a very major turning point. So there is always going to be a burden of expectations, but you need to have that clarity in mind. You need to first see, for example, if you are appearing for CLAT, just clearing CLAT should not be your aim. If you are appearing for it, you need to see that each mock which you give, are you better than your previous mock? Because that's what I adopted even there. Am I scoring better than the previous thing? The reason I think in hindsight when I didn't score that well during that CLAT is because I devoted all my major attention towards clearing the medical exam. I had parental pressure. So it's there. It's going to be there. But you need to be clear about what your priorities are. For example, if you have a boards exam as well, you have a competitive exam as well. You realize that in boards exam, it's more of, like, for example, I think the cutoff was around 60% or something. So, and then you have CLAT as well. So if you are coming from very busy streams such as science, it's a decision which you need to make that what matters to you more. Right? So if you have that clarity in mind, you have more dedicated efforts, more focused efforts. Otherwise, it will be like you won't be here, you won't be there. So that's one mistake which I did. Like maybe I wasn't very convincing enough, at home to tell them very straightforwardly that I've decided that I need to do law, because even I wasn't very sure at that time. Like medicine and law both were equally pulling me, towards them. Each of them had its own, pulls or charm. But so maybe I'm not exactly the right person to say that, but you need to first see that your competition is with yourself. Your next mock should be better than the previous one. You need to continuously keep studying. There will be rough days, there's no doubt about it. But I think, consistency does help in the long term. Even if though it is cliched, there'll be days when you'll not feel like solving some questions, but exactly those are those days when you need to sit and solve, because that will help you do things when you don't desire them. Because in a competitive exam, when you regret it, maybe 3-4 days down after the result has come, that maybe I shouldn't have done that, or maybe at that time when I didn't feel like doing like solving some paper or solving a mock, I should have solved that. That will be a regret which you'll have. So by experience, I'll tell you that in order to not have that regret, you see that you have a target which is 1 year down the line, and religiously you need to keep solving, even when you don't feel that. You always have your friends and family for support. At times, I did think that it was a lonely journey, but discussing with peers which support your idea and not drag you down, or who are not hyper competitive, that helps. Having a peer group which is supportive, I think that helps.
So Jay, you mentioned the role of teachers. Okay, and I'm sure हमारे जितने भी बच्चे हैं जो इस वक्त अभी स्कूल में हैं, तो वो भी ये जानना चाहेंगे. In this entire preparation of a paper like CLAT, आपको क्या लगता है कि टीचर्स का रोल कितना होता है? या if you seek guidance from somewhere, or if you are following any YouTube channel, or you have joined some classes, how these things matter and benefit the student?
Yeah. So when I gave the CLAT in 2016, like during my time of 12, I wasn't very aware. I just told my parents that I had an interest in law. They didn't take me very seriously at that time, so they enrolled me in a course. And I went on weekends, and then my perspective gradually evolved. Like for current affairs at that point, I wasn't very sure how it affects us daily, or for that matter, international relations. And at that time, we had the Syrian conflict going on, which was just fresh. 2011, 12 se chalu tha, and it kept on going. So we had one faculty which taught me about international affairs, ki Bashar al-Assad kya kar raha hai, Iran Saudi ka rule kya hai. And that completely blew off my mind. And there's so much more to just 4 walls of the classroom. So that helped me broaden my outlook. Or whenever I would read about some cases, someone is illegally detained, or someone is let off the hook despite being guilty or something. So that did have an impact. You'll find that things around you, if you have a love for humanities, which is subjects like law, you'll see that certain things affect you more. Then you will tend to read more about it. Here, ye aisa kyun hai? So at that time, we didn't have many websites, like Live Law or Bar and Bench. But that time, I had the study material. I would read what exactly is taught, what exactly is a civil wrong, what exactly is a criminal law. So that encouraged me. And in certain newspapers, I was a huge fan of Fali S. Nariman, who was a jurist. So he had some interviews, and that also influenced me. My uncle was itself a huge influence. So I thought, you stay motivated during that. So teachers, there are some teachers who may not meet physically, especially in today's world. And I'll tell it honestly. When the consortium had released the 4 sample papers, I googled online कि बाबा इसके answer keys क्या है. So even अड्डा 24/7 के मैंने videos देखे.
So today, Jay has busted 2 myths. First of all, I've heard a lot from science students कि they're always confused कि law करें नहीं करें, क्योंकि कहीं ना कहीं वो readers अच्छे नहीं माने जाते हैं, क्योंकि because time कह दीजिए तो नहीं है, क्योंकि इतना पढ़ना पड़ता है, so they don't have time to read, but they are considered to be कि reading में इतना ज्यादा उनको इंटरेस्ट नहीं आता है, तो इसलिए लॉ तो हम कैसे ही कर पाएंगे. तो पहला मिथ तो ये कि देखिए हमारे सामने एक स्टूडेंट है जो पीसीबी का स्टूडेंट है, फिजिक्स, केमिस्ट्री एंड बायोलॉजी उन्होंने पढ़ा है 11th-12th में, और उसके बाद उन्होंने क्लैट का पेपर क्लियर किया 2 बार. तो ये तो एक कमेंडेबल चीज है उनके लिए. तो ये पहला मिथ. और दूसरा मिथ उन्होंने जो किया है कि आप कहते हैं कि हम प्रीवियस ईयर पेपर नहीं करेंगे, और इसमें तो क्योंकि अब करने के लिए है क्या, तो उन्होंने बोला नहीं, हमने प्रीवियस ईयर पेपर भी करे थे, हमने प्रैक्टिस क्वेश्चन भी करे, तो ये कर दिया. और तीसरा मिथ ये है कि उन्होंने अक्टूबर से स्टार्ट करी. मैं ये नहीं कह रहा हूँ कि आप भी अक्टूबर से प्रिपरेशन स्टार्ट करें, लेकिन कि अगर आप मन लगा के करते हैं तो प्लीज सी द ब्राइटर साइड ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर डिसीजन, कि मन लगा के अगर आप प्रिपरेशन करेंगे फॉर अ पेपर लाइक क्लैट, तो पेपर आपका निकल सकता है. ऐसा नहीं है कि आप नहीं निकाल सकते, क्योंकि उन्होंने बोला एक तरफ कि मेरा इंग्लिश इज अ स्ट्रॉन्ग सेक्शन. बहुत सारे लोग इंग्लिश को निगलेक्ट भी कर देते हैं क्योंकि नहीं समझते. तो मैं यहाँ जानना चाहूंगा, क्योंकि इंग्लिश स्ट्रॉन्ग सेक्शन था जय का, सो इफ यू कुड टेल आवर स्टूडेंट्स व्हाई इंग्लिश is an important section and a tool. I would not only stop you for the section, but I want to understand that why English is an important tool to clear CLAT. Because बहुत सारे बच्चे इंग्लिश में कहीं ना कहीं उसे छोड़ देते हैं, उसे कहते हैं कि इसमें तो क्या ही है, और वो इंग्लिश एंड फिर क्रिटिकल रीजनिंग कहीं ना कहीं उनकी पीछे रह जाती. तो why English or studying English is really important?
Yeah, so मैंने जो मिस्टेक्स किए थे वो मैं बात के लिए रखूंगा. But since you have asked specifically about English, all said and done, our Chief Justice 𝐬𝐲 Chandrachud was saying that CLAT creates an unlevel playing field because it's predominant in English, and many CLAT consortiums were like, we can have it in local languages as well. But given the current state of things, that's not a debate we are thinking about. English, what I felt is a good command over English helps you to watch the maximum information in a minimum amount of time. You will not have to again and again go back and refer to that passage or what did that mean or what does this author try to imply. Because at times the passages in logical reasoning, they are a bit convoluted. Like which is the best possible inference or what does have to be necessarily true for the author to state that or something like that. So having a good grasp, if English there are 25 questions logical reasoning, around 50 questions out of 120, close to 50% of your paper will inevitably be upon English. And like I told, the best example is accused and convicted, the mistake which I did in my exam. So if I would have been more careful regarding those wordings, and someone, when I was in my 12th as well, someone did tell me that, being a lawyer or being in the legal profession is all about having that flair with English or flair with language in general. Even local language is even English. Since our competitive exam is in English, we need to stick to it and see that कि paper कैसे निकलता है. आपके पर्सनल प्रेफरेंसेस, आपका पर्सनल कंफर्ट ये फिलहाल एक कंसर्न नहीं है. आपको जहाँ पे जाना है उसके लिए अगर पेपर सेट में ये है तो मुझे कैसे भी करके वो इम्प्रूव करना है. I think that should have been the mindset.
I was bowled first of all by the sheer geniusness of this particular person. Then I am again bowled by that the person has an aspiration, and the aspiration was then back in the day and now again, and he has cleared that particular paper. Third time when I am amazed to see this person, and I'm so happy that I got a chance to interact with him, that I think NEET PG also he cleared, right? And
it's not to brag or something, but
no. It's not about brag. It's like about many of our students and many of our children right now who are in this teenager time when they are 17, 18. So they need to know stories like this so that they also get motivated out of it. That I also want to become, or may not ape you, but want to just take some energies. Yeah. Some energies from you so that they can also think that the road is tough, the journey may be tough, but the destination is very brighter. So it's just the beginning for him, and I feel that that energy, that enthusiasm that he carries in his voice, in his demeanor, is something, a source of inspiration for all of us. And I would like to wish all the best from Adda 24/7. I would like to wish and congratulate you that you have a good and a bright future ahead, and all the best. Thank you so much for sparing out time here for this wonderful conversation and giving a ray of hope and that determination to our children as well.